I know I usually do an introduction where I try to at least welcome everyone who hasn't watched the videos or thank people for watching the videos. And obviously, you all know that I'm very grateful that you are. Last night, I really just, in a sincere way, was asking the Lord for some direction in my own life. And just even almost out of desperation, was up reading and praying about things. And in a very wonderful way, and in a very real way, the Lord just showed me so much from His Word. And I feel like it's my responsibility here to give the greatest utterance that I can to this message and with the greatest sobriety that I can to this message. Even though I know it's being watched virtually, I hope that I can deliver it in the way that I received it, and it can be a blessing to you. We're going to start in Exodus chapter 33. Exodus chapter 33 and verse 12. And Moses said unto the Lord, See, thou sayest unto me, Bring up this people, and thou hast not let me know whom thou wilt send with me. Yet thou hast said, I know thee by name, and thou hast found grace in my sight. Now therefore I pray thee, if I have found grace in thy sight, show me now thy way, that I may know thee, that I may find grace in thy sight, and consider that this nation is thy people. And he said, My presence shall go with thee, and I will give thee rest. And he said unto him, If thy presence go not with me, carry us not up hence. Let's pray. Father, Lord, I love you. Lord, I thank you so much, Lord, for your word. I thank you so much for the Spirit of God. I thank you so much for speaking to my heart. I ask you, Lord, those that watch this, Lord, will find it right in due season. And, Lord, that you'll touch hearts and deal with people the only way that you can. I pray in the precious name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. A lot of times I'm trying to set up things long term. Like this is kind of a running series. And even though some of you might have noticed some of the transitions within the series, we kind of try to set up things so that I can lead from one thing right into another. Last week we ended about that sacrificial descent, and it was basically like, how do you access the things of the Lord? Well, you got to go down. You got to go down, and you got to humble yourself, and you've got to go and interact with the Lord in that space, right? And then you go down there knowing what you're giving up and willing to give it up in order to receive something greater. If there's one thing that was talked about so much when I was growing up, it was the will of God. And to be honest with you, I almost fretted it to a point where it was a great terror in my life that I would miss it. It was a great terror in my life that I would have a misstep. And that's not necessarily a bad thing for a young man to have a fear of the Lord, but I also think I didn't have an understanding of what I was looking for. I think we're landing there a lot where we are sending people into, chaos into their lives, and not even like we're sending, like I'm directly causing chaos, but I'm saying, if you're under my tutelage and I'm not instructing you properly for the road ahead, I'm not really preparing you. And we're putting people in a position where they go through those times, they have no idea how to find direction. I can just say this as plain as I can. I think we've lost the Spirit of God in our churches. I think we've lost His presence. Whatever we have, I don't feel like it's real. Whatever's going on, man, it just seems like it's such a manipulation and such a placation of just time and place, and making sure that people feel like the money they gave was worth it, and making sure that the baseball fields are nice, or the exercise room is great, or that the sound system is just spot on, and it's just all garbage. This is Moses. This isn't some trivial character in the Bible. This is Moses. God's going to start His word out, and He says, you're the guy who's going to write my word. You're the guy who's going to start the Bible. Not only that, you're going to work personal miracles and be the direct hand of God to destroy the greatest nation at this time on earth. He sees that. Oh, by the way, in case you didn't know, since Exodus chapter 13, a giant pillar of fire has been going before them to light the way and to set them up where they're supposed to go. So there's that. There's also a cloud. There's also all the miracles that he works in the desert. You have all of that, and Moses says, if I don't have your presence, I can't go forward. And you're willing to forfeit his presence for garbage. That's why we don't have any direction. It's why no one knows where to go, and no one has any orientation, and no one knows what the next step is, and no one can point forward and say, this is what we should do with any confidence. They got to have 14 committees to decide on what's the next step, or you get to some guy who's just a stinking overlord who thinks every thought that comes into his head is the Spirit of God, and we don't have the presence of the Lord. And I say that because I'm just looking at my life and realizing how often I have made terrible choices because I did not prepare myself to at least interact with God on any level. Matthew chapter 9. Matthew 9:16. No man putteth a new cloth into an old garment, for that which is put in to fill it up taketh from the garment, and maketh the rent is made worse. Neither do men put new wine into old bottles, else the bottles break, the wine runneth out, the bottles perish. But they put new wines into new bottles, and watch, both are preserved. Luke chapter 5. It's the same passage. You're also going to get it in Mark chapter 2. Luke chapter 5. Perspective on this stuff that the Bible gives you by giving you multiple views at the same thing is so important because you understand what God's saying. Luke chapter 5 verse 36. And he spake also a parable unto them. No man putteth a piece of new garment upon an old. If otherwise, then both the new maketh a rent, and the piece that was taken out of the new agreeth not with the old. And no old man putteth new wine into old bottles, else the new wine will burst the bottles and be spilled, and the bottles shall perish. But new wine must be put into new bottles, and both are preserved. And here's a little extra. No man having drunk old wine straightway desireth new, for he saith the old is better. There's a way of doing things, and Jesus Christ is trying to get a bunch of Jews to understand, who have the right Bible, who believe in the right God, who've got the right religion, who are making the right decisions. There's something new. And if you don't understand that this thing you love is going to be lost if you don't understand that. Because that's Paul's dilemma. He's on the road, and I guarantee you, he thinks that if he accepts Jesus Christ, it's the death of Judaism, right? It's the death of his religion. But it's actually, according to Romans chapter 11, the only way to get the people of Israel a chance to be redeemed again. The introduction of this church age was the only way for God to deliver his people who rejected him the first time around. Because by us who are in unbelief, accepting a God for the first time and receiving grace, it allowed those who fell from belief to unbelief to believe once again. But Paul doesn't understand that. And I bet you that Abraham doesn't understand when God tells him to go kill the promised child that he had prayed and begged God for. When he's walking up to that mountain, I guarantee you he does not understand the sacrifice he's about to make, but he's willing to make it. Likewise, Paul made the same choice. Whatever we were supposed to have, We've lost it from our daily lives. You read in the Bible, and it is just constantly people being led of the Spirit, and the presence of the Spirit of God is in their daily lives. It's not just through the book of Acts where like the Spirit of God is directly speaking to people, but when Paul writes every church letter, every single church letter, he is dealing with the Spirit of God. We don't have his presence anymore. And to be honest with you, with this way we've got this whole thing set up, you don't need God for the religion. I had this whole thing, I don't even know how I'm going to work it out. It's about track theology, right? And how you've got all these little stations along a depot. And basically people just move from one point to another, and one point just confirms the other. And then you get to the end of the little railway, and then you just circle back and you keep going back through all the same points. And I could put any religion on this thing. I could put any dogma on this thing, and it's always going to be true. And here's the reality. You do not need God to practice religion. But I've got the right religion. Great. And where's the Spirit of God in your life? Where's his presence? You're watching a YouTube video. Is this the first time you felt conviction in your heart in so long and had any interaction with God and any real understanding of who he is? And has he ever talked to you out of his word? Or have you just been pretending? And we're just going to keep going along the same cycle and the same cycle, and maybe 10 more years will pass, and 20 more years will pass. And what? For what? You're not even proving to God anything. I'm glad you'll pay your taxes and you won't kill me. But religion's a terrible way to get closer to the Lord. What's worse is there's no appetite for the new. People don't want to leave it. They like the system. There's stability within the system. There's safety within the system. There's security within the system. The Lord's not there. People mistake the system for God. Doesn't it bother you don't even know if he's real? And you got to go back 10, 20 years to the day you got saved to even know that there was something real? As that memory fades, how will your Christianity age? How's it going to go? Because what I see is a rapid drop-off in people at a certain point, and they just become ever more carnal and fall further and further away from the Lord, and they don't even realize it. Is he real to you anymore? Is he real to you at all? I think I've come in too hot on this one, and I've probably lost a lot of you, maybe just due to my tone. But I don't know how else to speak about these things. Because I'm brokenhearted about how I have screwed this up so bad. I don't want you to make the same mistakes I have. It's not falling into sin. It's not some terrible thing to confess. It's just, man, there's just days upon days upon days that go by, and I don't have the Lord, and I don't have his presence, and I don't know that he's near. And I do not want to push content just to put out content. I want the Lord to direct these steps. Because people are falling into a world they don't understand. They're behaving like children in a spiritual environment. They're costing themselves a world of harm. And the fruits of what we've done are represented in what our children have become. All that I love is in the room next door. If I fail them and they don't see the presence of God in me, I don't know how I'll recover. We've replaced the presence of God with physical things. It might be as simple as just physical pressure. People think spiritual pressure is me calling you when you miss church or nagging you for not coming to soul winning. That's not spiritual pressure. I want, when I'm around somebody and I'm dealing with them one-on-one, they say, I don't know what it is that Joe Carter has. I don't know what is up with that, but whatever it is, I've got to get tapped in. I need something that's real like that. I need something that's genuine like that. And we used to have it. We used to have that. And I don't know what you exchanged it for. But you went from spiritual innocence to spiritual adolescence. And instead of being able to make the step from spiritual adolescence to spiritual maturity, you fell into rebellion. Because something was wrong with the system you were in, or something was wrong with the pastor you had, or something was wrong with the church you were going to, and you forsook the God that was real because of the garbage system that was fake. Wake up. Go find him. It might be like Jacob. You might be on the side of the mountain wrestling all night, and it might hurt you when you come out. But gosh, he came out a prince, did he not? Changed his name. He says, you're no longer Jacob the trickster. You're Israel, the prince with God. I had all these verses about how God will lead you, and he'll instruct you, and he'll teach you, and how he'll order your steps. That's Psalms 23:3. That's Psalms 32:8. That's Psalms 37:23. That's Psalms 94:12 and 13. You all know Proverbs 3:5 and 6. Trust in the Lord. There's the surrendering of your heart to Christ that doesn't have to do with, it doesn't have anything to do with salvation. It has to do with accessing the Spirit of the Lord. I've said this before, like, you interact with people, sometimes people find out that you're a preacher or something, they'll change their whole vestige. And they'll begin to interact with you they'll try to be interacting with you in a spiritual way. But they're uncomfortable because it's unnatural. And it's not something they do. But they have enough reverence for at least the things of God that they don't want to be disrespectful. I know a guy who's a good guy. It's like every time he'll say a curse word and then he'll apologize that he cursed. I've always longed to get past that veil and say, I just want to interact with you honestly. But I don't know how you say that in a public forum without offending someone. Because if you keep pretending to be spiritual, then we can't ever talk about what happened along the way where you lost the real Spirit of God that you once had and you exchanged it for behaviors that appear to be spiritual. Or maybe you never had it to begin with. Either way, this interaction, I can't do anything with it. We've talked about that fidelity, right? That love that you have with the brethren and when the Spirit of God shows up. Remember, like when 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst. There's something wonderful about it when it happens. And I've been talking to my buddy Nick, and Nick, I hope to God you're watching this. Brother, I feel it every time I talk to you. Every time it feels like the Spirit of God shows up in those conversations. You ever talk to somebody and it's not there? Man, it's a labor. because all the liberty's gone and all the freedom's gone, and now you're restricted, and now you can't say anything, and now it just seems so tense and tight. And what is that, man? That's just all that stuff from the world. If I can tie it into last week, if you want to know what you're supposed to be looking for when you go into chaos, it's the presence of the Lord. And that's where the will of God is. Find Him. He'll direct your steps. He's done it throughout the whole Bible. Look, you know what's amazing? It calls in Acts, and it says we go here, and God forbids us. Then we go here, and God wouldn't allow it. Then we go here, and God says keep going. And then along the way, He gets a dream to go to Macedonia. He does 3 things that are wrong, and He's trying to just go preach the gospel. And the Lord just sorts that out just real quick. No problem at all for Him. Our lives aren't in order to the Lord anymore because we don't have Him. And you can keep saying His name, and you can keep getting emotional. And I mean, look, I know how to play the game too. Or you could have Him, and it could be real. And I pray to God that's what you go for. I love y'all, church family. God bless.